How many people were here last night? Good. I'm impressed. I'm always afraid that if you come to on Saturday night, you won't come back on Sunday. And so thanks for being both at both services. But for those of you who weren't here, you really missed something fabulous last night. And let me just give you a little bit of sense of this. It was this whole stage. We had two drum and percussion. We had violin and viola. We had keyboard, Jay, Tim here in the middle, three trumpets. Thank you, bass, and three horns over here on this side, and then 30 people in the choir. Everybody dressed in black with a red accent. It looked a little bit like the Mafia Goes to Christmas, but. Anyway, this scene was just potent with potential, and it was realized so amazingly well. It came across Tim. I did come up to Tim right afterwards. I put my hand on his back and said, "Good job," which was kind of understating the whole thing. It was a fabulous, amazing job that he did. And Jay was like the maestro of the piano that just made it sing, and everybody else played their part so amazingly well. Cindy was there, the choir was there, Lydia was there. A few people that we haven't seen that much of had joined in on the choir. It was just great. Everything was great. Should I just let y'all do this? And the kids, and I forgot, and Eric was in the back doing the sound. What else have I got? Anyway, so this whole thing was just put together so beautifully and so amazing, and I was sitting in the front pew, and I tell this story is that this came up together so quietly that the staff was nervous that it wasn't going to happen because it just came about. We were not stressed by this at all. And this was their first time, and they had a big shoes to fill. They came in and they just blew us all away. And it was, as I was going to say, I put my hand on Tim's back and I thought, I said, "Great job." And I realized he had sweat right through his coat. That as easy as this looked to all of us, and it felt to all of us, there was a lot of effort that went into it. And it was a magnificent evening. I want to thank you for that. We're very lucky, and we are just blessed with talent, and both in the choir and in the musicians. It was just an amazing evening. I'm sorry if you weren't here. I'm sure next year it will be even bigger and better, as it always has. Seems like it gets better all the time, but thank you for being here at both services. That's great. Now today we're going to talk about love, and I want to say, I don't feel as though I'm really in my strength of expertise, so I'm just going to tell you some stories about it. So love is, as most of you know, is really the thing that most of us crave the most, and we go about getting it in some peculiar ways, right? And many of us feel like we're at a deficit, even so. Even though it might be a big focus of our lives, we somehow have barred ourselves from having the full experience of loving and being loved. I remember my early explorations into consciously trying to love. I was so this workshop. It was now 35 years ago, but it was at this workshop. I was hurting terribly inside. I was unhappy with myself. I was unhappy with my circumstances. And in a quest to get into a better place, I'd gone to this workshop. For the first time I'd ever done any of these consciousness-raising workshops. I went to a place called Actualizations, which was in San Francisco, and it was kind of like a daughter organization that came out of EST. It was some of the same people that had worked for the EST organization, worked started this, and it was kind of asked on a more kinder and gentler form, which wouldn't be that hard, really, come to think of it, but but it was an invitation to see yourself in other people. So there would be about 170 people, about like we have on this floor right here. About 170 people would be together, and they would be invited, often from a state of pain. They would actually get up and share something, and they would work with the leader. And one of the things that would happen throughout this whole thing is that as you would see other people talking about their story and trying to discover what their part was in it and how they could do it better, you realize that you were right there with them, that you and they were the same, that their feelings, their needs, their wants, their failures were your failures, your needs, your wants. And so there was this, gradually over the course of 4 days, 12 hours a day, you began to empathize and open your heart to all these people. And people would come in crusty and go out tender. But the way they finished each one of these 4-day events was on the last night, which would be a Sunday night, usually around 9 or 10 o'clock at night. They would have everybody rim the perimeter of the room. So you can imagine if you were all around the perimeter of the room, they'd bring the lights down to darkness. And then in one voice would sing, "It's in every one of us to be wise." Same song they sang last night. It's in every one of us to be wise. Open your heart. And this would bring the house down. People would be weeping. They would be exposed to an aspect of themselves through the course of this process that they just had wanted to get to, I'm sure, but they had covered over because life's pains and troubles and failed attempts had caused them to encase their heart and to put on a mask. And in the course of 4 days, they were asked and given many chances to drop that mask and to open their heart. And so this became kind of like a song that I couldn't hear without crying, you know, and last night I did my best not to. But it brought a tear to my eyes. And so it was like, aha, we can all be wise. But really the song is saying we can all be loving. It says we be wise, but I guess the wise thing is to be loving. And a few years after I did that first one, I was also leading a small group within the same essential program. Just you would have a small group of a dozen people, and there would be a leader or two in there. And I was sitting in the circle, my circle, and I was like the shepherd for these people through the process. And I thought, okay, well, I know what they need. They just need to feel loved. And so I said, I'm going to open my heart and just flood them while they have their eyes closed and they're meditating. I'm going to send them love. And I realized I went to do this, but the aperture of my love was so small, I could not squeeze it out. I tried. I mean, I did a little bit, but it was kind of like I wanted a water cannon, and what I got was a squirt gun. And just a little squirt would come out at a time. And so I did a lot of work over the next 10 or 12 years, probably, meditating on the heart chakra, kind of like we did today. And in meditating on the heart chakra, I realized that time after time when I would do this, I would come into a layer of grief. The first moment, it might just feel kind of a warming, but then as I would go deeper, I'd come into a layer of grief. And this layer of grief, this experience of grief lasted for a decade. I would do that. Almost every time I would go into it, there'd be a layer of grief, but then finally at some point underneath it, it began to just be this heartfelt space without the grief. That I had kind of, I guess, consumed that grief. Now, the grief was not terrible. It was not like a horrible thing. It was just grief. And I think many times what we do when we have these so-called negative emotions is to avoid having the negative emotion, what we do is we begin to encase the heart in some protective shell. And it was that protective shell that wouldn't let it out, that it closed up all but this tiny little aperture in me. And part of the reason and part of the way at the same time I closed my heart down was I had become really angry with myself in particular, very unforgiving of myself. I had not done what I thought I should do, and therefore I had judged myself, and I had judged the world around me. Of course, everybody gets in on it when I start judging. Just everybody's fair game, and I had judged a lot, and it just had built this web over my heart that wouldn't let stuff in or out. So this process of melting this away, in the process of doing that, one of the things that would come up was as I would go beneath the surface, and that would be where the grief is, the loss, the sense of, and that loss is really that loss of connection. It's the loss of connection. It's the same thing that we hear in every love song, and we read about it in the newspaper now as a epidemic of loneliness. This lack of connection is really what is difficult for us. We live in a society that has glorified the individual, and individualism is just like, especially be the man, be the man, go out, slay the dragon, but do it by yourself. Don't go, hey homies, I'm a little bit nervous about this dragon, none of that stuff, Just go out there and make that dragon's day, It's our culture has very much glorified this, and to some degree to our detriment. As they are seeing now, many people in the latter stages of their lives are very lonely, and it causes ill health and suffering on an emotional level. And yet, you scratch anyone's surface and you realize that even the tough guys, they want to connect. That they want their hearts to be touched. They want to give love and receive love. That's where we are. That's how we were born. That's the DNA of our physical being is based on that. When you think about it as essentially primates are a social species, and they're a complex social order, but they are a social species, and we carry that within our bone and our blood. That's who we want to be. We feel odd and awkward when we're not in a group, where we don't feel like we belong. That used to be one of the ways they would kill people, is they would just send them away from the tribe, to say, you're out, you're ostracized, and you die. They didn't see enough John Wayne movies to know they could make it without other people. They just up and died. It's built into us. And yet, well, you think about it. We have so glorified the individual that almost none of us live where we were born, right? How many people grew up within 30 miles of Raleigh? I did. There you go. Well, there's at least 5 of us here. We move to be successful. We have glorified success much more than staying in the tribe that we started with. And there's some big benefits. There's some great opportunities because of that. It's a whole, in so many ways, our world functions because we are willing to do that. I just want to say, there is a cost. And so we must work we must almost engineer a life that has a place where we can be open-hearted. We have done, I think that's a big reason why people come to church, is that they come to feel something you can't find in the field of commerce that often. They come here to feel connection, to sing a song with other people that to know the ritual of how we do things, to greet people and hug them, to say, I love you to strangers, where you get arrested in some places for that. And so, and yet we could still be in our little shells right in here, right? We can still do it, can't you? So let's talk about how to open the heart. Both Charles Fillmore and I believe the same thing, which is kind of interesting. Whenever I find he's agreeing with me, I think he's the smartest guy in the world. And one of the things he said was, you have to attend to this part of the anatomy. Literally, you bring your attention to the heart chakra. And in bringing your attention to the heart chakra, you give it a chance to flourish. And if you think, I'll love because I'll see something attractive, Fillmore says you're missing the point. The real point is to see beyond the physical and to love not the physical you're seeing, but to love the divine expressed as the physical. And to look at the divine, not so much to look at the physical. To love that, or to open to that, that's where the real magic and the mystery is, really. It's easy to love someone who agrees with your template of what someone is beautiful is like. Though you might have many different templates in this room on an individual basis when you say, oh, that person's beautiful to me. Then it's easier to open your heart. But if you can look beyond that to the essence, essentially to the universal in each person, then you have a chance to make everyone fit the template, to love everyone. And I know some people's template, mortal template, is not that easy to deal with, right? Okay, that's fair. I mean, you don't have to be perfect. I don't want to overlay a layer of perfection on a process that is already difficult enough. You can just give it your best shot and do what you can with who you are and where you are at the moment. But if you think about unconditional love, the idea of unconditional love is it's not conditioned on the condition of the person in front of you or the circumstances of what's happening. It's just, you just love. And what is love? Really, it's very hard to describe, but it is this opening of yourself and also a sort of emanence of, or emanation of something toward another. We have poets who've talked about love, but let's just call it energy in this room for the moment. It's just your energy is in support of them in some way, embracing them, caring for them. That's enough, right? A definition. So you attend to your own anatomy because you begin to break, literally you'll begin to break this shell. And one of the things as you practice this attending to the anatomy is that the small muscles that contract inside the chest that have caused an encasement of the heart chakra, that those will begin to relax, and you may feel pain as you practice this. As you feel your heart opening, you may feel it's not terrible pain, but you'll feel some of the stretching of these muscles as they unleash and let some air in there. So when I was saying in the meditation, imagine this part of the anatomy expanding. So good posture is very important. Slumping doesn't help. That's not a very open-hearted person that hides their heart by pulling everything inward on them. It's like opening the heart and letting this out. And then just bring your attention there. Bring your attention there and bring your attention there. And then when you feel something, send it out. Let it flow out. I was studying under a guy named Brew Joy who was very much into the heart chakra. And one of the things he would say is when you're beginning, when you're starting out especially, and maybe even as you go deeply into your own spirituality, he recommended that people bubble up, which is put a light wall around themselves, one that let in and let stuff out, but only let in what would serve and not what would not serve. Now, this is not to say you need to protect yourself against the world, that the world's a dangerous place. It's just, the heart often needs to be told, you're safe. It doesn't want to open in the place of danger, generally. So it's not to say that the world is an unsafe place. It's to say that your heart is safe. So you put this shield up around you, and you tell it, let only that which will serve me in. And I'm not saying that's not going to hurt. Some of that stuff that comes in may be difficult to process or to deal with. It may be painful. It may be, you may find yourself even more vulnerable than you ever were before, because you now have a shield that says, I got this. Whatever comes my way, I got this. And then from that place, then you expand your heart and you give your love out in all directions without really concern. Now, if you walk into a room, and you have done this in preparation before you go into the room, you're going to affect the room that you walk into. No matter what's going on inside there, they're going to feel this somehow. They may not fall down on their knees and go, thank God you are here. So we've been waiting for you, Master, perfect Master. Thank you for being here. No, but as we can, as we do, you will become the source of the experience inside the room. You will begin to adjust what's happening inside the room by your presence. Your very presence of shifting to the heart. The world is waiting for this. They're waiting to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel appreciated. Right? Aren't you? And so when we do that, we make a space around us that the world can enjoy itself in. It's a huge opportunity for us. This is what being the light of the world is about. Is to be love, and to be love, and often in places where it doesn't seem like it's obvious it should show up. To be love at your family dinner. Do you know what I mean? So, it's Christmas time and everybody gets together with their family, and every once in a while we have to do a little healing about I was with my family and I've not, blah, 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 that whole story. So if you're worried about going to your family, bubble up. Be the love. Know that nothing comes to you that you cannot use for your own benefit, because you have set the parameters of how you will interpret all information that comes your way. And be the love there. And quite frankly, you may not see amazing changes, but you probably will. I was doing my first Sunday talk. I had been practicing this heart meditation for at least a dozen years at that time, maybe more. So I was pretty good at just shifting my energy from my head to my heart. I just had that down at that time. Not so good at it these days, but I really had it down then. And I was standing in front of the congregation. I had the one I was a member of, and it was I was doing the obligatory thank you for letting me speak, blah, 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 all that stuff. You know how guest speakers do that. And then and there was a twitter in the room, which little bit of tiny people shuffling and speaking quietly to each other and all that. And then I shifted from my head to my heart, and the room went stone cold silent. the first syllable I said after that. The world is waiting to hear love, to feel love, to know that their heart and your heart are connected. They're waiting for that. And so it does take courage to do this. I mean, the French phrase for courage, the heart, it takes courage, because when you're open-hearted, then you're sensitive. And you're very much more sensitive than you are when you're closed-hearted. I can tell you that. It said that when the heart is open, a feather hurts. So it will hurt. You'll be sensitive. You'll be touched by things. You'll be a blubbering idiot at times. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you probably don't want to go to a knife fight with that in mind. I'm going to be open-hearted, but in most cases, it's not that bad. You just give it your best shot, hold on as long as you can, and if you collapse into closing your heart down, well, that's where you were. That's what you did. But you can come back, and you can open again. But as you keep your heart open, you set the conditions for a brand new experience for yourself and for other people. And that, I think, is what this part of the spiritual practice of the heart is about. So it's Christmas. It's not Easter yet, but it's Christmas. And so there's a phrase in the Bible, which you see at football games all the time, John 3:16, right? We don't use it much here, because it sounds like you're sinners. But if you read the first few words, God so loved the world, right there. Just stop there for a minute. God so loved the world. I mean, what's to love about the world if you're God? Right? Other than it's a lovable thing. We are lovable beings, even though we're imperfect, even though we have wars and poverty and prejudice and all the mess that we make. We're a lovable thing. God so loved the world that He gave. He gave. So this is how it is with love. When you love, you give. You give something. You love, you give. God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten, which of course sounds like Jesus, which it might mean to some people, but it could also mean He gave the only thing He could give, which is Himself. Or herself. Or, forgive me for using binary language, but she gave herself. Like a mother gives to a child. God so loved the world that she gave her whole self. That is the message of this season. This is the message of every season, it should be, but it is the message of Christmas. God so loved the world, she gave. Let us meditate. So let's begin. Let's bubble up. Imagine that this is a way of practicing. I don't think it's risky here, but bubble up. Put a shield around you that says everything that comes your way will be for your benefit. And nothing will get through that won't be for your benefit. So you're safe inside. You're safe. And let the heart open. And to encourage it to open, we breathe into the center of the chest, a few inches above the soft of the belly, and we bring our attention there. And you may encounter emotion. But you continue because we have courage. We open the heart. open the heart. Breathe into your heart. Expand the space in your body that holds the heart chakra. And let love begin to form and grow and build. And then give some away. Send some out into the world. Send some out into this room that we might feel your love and you might feel ours. And do your best to tap into the divine love. So it's not just you, but it's the one presence as you. And send some out to someone or somewhere. It's in every one of us. To be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can all know everything without ever knowing why. It's in every one of us to be wise. Let us keep our hearts open. And be that wise fool that loves in all situations. And so it is. Amen. Before we take up the offering, I want to say that we have done a good thing in this church. There was a need by children who do not have much and are essentially protected by the court. And we did this angel tree for them, and we gave enough for at least 30 kids to have everything they wanted. They asked for it. Well, maybe not everything they wanted, but we certainly did a lot for them. So, congratulations to us. Well done. And I want to say we're also going to do a congregational meeting. We have a congregational meeting twice a year. This is where we go to pick the leadership selection committee, which is the ones who choose the board. We vote for them. If you didn't get a handout on the way in, please get one. We're going to vote this week, and we're going to vote next week, and we'll tell you the results the following week. I guess it'll be the end of the year. And they will be the ones who will be making the decision on who becomes the next board. And I just want to say that, part of what we're trying to do here is balance the books. We do this every year. We come to the end of the year. We're like farmers or retailers, and a lot comes in December. If it doesn't come in December, then we start the year with less than we started the year before. And so if you were holding back on us, and it snowed last week, so I know you're definitely holding back on us because you weren't here. Make your contribution and make it count, because it helps a lot when we don't have to worry about money. And I just want to say thank you for all that you have done so far this year. It has been an amazing year financially, physically, spiritually, emotionally, for all of us. So thank you for your gifts. And now let's take our gifts and bless them. Okay. We're going to say this together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is.